ఒక్క నిమిషం ఇప్పుడు చూడు. You guys able to hear me now? Is it working? Perfect. Yeah, thank you. So Balaji, right? So yeah, Sangeeta, thank you. Hey everyone, good morning. So hey Balaji, this is not the testing one. This is the DevOps session which we are discussing right now. Hi Bhaskar. Morning. Yes. Okay, fine. So Morning, everyone. Let's start the demo. Myself, Shankar. So I'm having more than 10 years of IT experience working in a cloud-based company and as a lead. So I worked with a number of projects to handle this DevOps area, and I used to give the trainings internally as well as externally. So this is simply about me. So let's jump into the DevOps, right? So so what we are going to do with the DevOps? So in the DevOps area, right? So what are the areas we are going to automate, and why in our past, in the earlier, why the people are not able to automate, and now on of sudden how the DevOps people are going to automate the process, right? So that is a simple point here. Right. Let's try to discuss about those points. Then we'll go to the tools, right? So if you want to automate our DevOps area, right? So whatever the the process which we are going to discuss about the DevOps. So what are the tools we are going to use to automate it, and right how the tools are going to integrate one and each other, right? So this complete tool stack we'll discuss. Then we'll go for our regular classes, right? So if I take an application, right? So if I take an application, right? So the application is required platform, infrastructure, right? So and the code base, basically, right? So I have to develop the code, and the code has to be deployed to the servers so that people can use multiple devices to access that application, right? So now, here, so how the application will go for the development, and how this application will go for the deployment, from the development to the deployment. So what kind of process we are going to follow, what are the teams are going to involve to set up this process, right? So if you understand that thing properly, right? So now why the DevOps came into the picture, we'll have a good picture, right? So now if I take an example of any sample application like a, a banking application, right? So I'm going to take a banking application. Now this application is required these modules like the balance inquiry, login module, money transfer, loan module, right? So right, so now if I want to implement this application, right? So what we require to do, right? So we require to have a development team, and once the development is done, we require to have the testing team to test the piece of code, the software, and we require to have the ops team to provide the infrastructure with the proper softwares and other stuff. We require to have the build and release team to build the piece of code and deploy into the server, right? So we require the middleware team to manage the web servers, app servers, DB servers, right? So right, so see in the background, multiple teams are going to play their roles so that we can deploy the piece, the software to the client or the customer, right? So as early as possible, right? So now, here, what kind of process will follow? So the process which we are going to call them as a software development life cycle. Cannot hear anything. I can only see your screen. Guys, this is the same for everyone. Are you guys able to hear me? Avinash is not able to hear. Perfect. Soba is able to hear. So Avinash, maybe from your end, yes, Sudhir also, right? So yeah, Avinash, maybe the issue is from your end. Can you check your connectivity part? Perfect, Susan. Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for the confirmation. Right. So now, this software, if I want to develop, and I want to go for the deployment, so these teams in the background are going to involve for the successful development to deployment. So now to make it successful, so the process what we are going to follow in our IT industry is software development life cycle. Right. So now here, if I go to the software development lifecycle in a simplest manner, right, we are going to discuss, we are not going to discuss more things about this because we have to discuss about the DevOps area. Right. So now in this SDLC, basically the first page will be the planning, and the second page will be the analysis. And after that, we'll go for the design. Then we'll go for the development. After that, we'll go for the testing. Then we'll go for the deployment. And finally, we'll go for the maintenance. So these are the pieces. So now each piece will be taken care by the respective teams, right? So what are the respective teams are here, right? So design phase, the architects will come into the picture, and development phase, the developers are comes into the picture, and the first testing testers, right? So release engineers for the deployment, then infrastructure, right? Operation team, and finally the support team, right? So these teams are working in the background in the right. So now, so when the people are increasing, right? So there is a chance of communication gap, collaboration gap, and finally the deployment time will be dragged out. Right? That's what happened in the past, right? So people are working individually; they are very good. So we are not going to point anyone here. So the only problem here is the gap, right? The communication or collaboration gap, which we faced in the past, right? So now here, so I could not hear. My voice is breaking. Perfect, I can hear. I can see my network is good. So Sadhu I can also not able to hear. So I don't see any issues from my end, guys. Right, my voice is clear, right, guys? Clear, 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 clear. It's good. Right, perfect, perfect. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thanks for the confirmation, guys. Yeah. So yeah, only the problem, guys. Right. So who are facing the issues, maybe your internet or your connectivity, please check from your end, because majority of the people are saying that my voice is clear. Yeah, Avinash, just now the demo got started. Yeah. Right. So now, here, so right, so the SDLC, right? So now in the SDLC we have different models. So now suppose as a and like customer, so I need this banking application. So then, so perfect, guys. Thank you. Thanks for the confirmation. Right. So now I need this application. Then I will ask the IT folks like the TCS, CTS, or whoever it may be, to implement this one. So then what the organization will do? So they will take one of the model from the SDLC. So those models are nothing but we are going to call them as a waterfall models or the agile models, right? So from the SDLC, so we are going to take the what's waterfall model or agile model. So let's see what is the waterfall in simplest manner. Then we'll go with the agile model. We'll try to understand. Then we'll go with this DevOps model, right? So now here, so the teams as we discussed, right, initially from the design phase, architectures will come to the picture. Then the developers, right? So then when it comes to the testing, right? So we require the testers. So when the testers are going to go for the testing, they require the infra, the missions. The missions require the proper software and the tools so that they can test the code. Otherwise, those are the bugs. A simple example, right? If I take a simple example here, so the developer started doing the development of the application. So initial phase, he thought of we require some uh, Java piece and some libraries or something like that. So then, so this requirement goes to the ops team that we require mission with the so and so software and tools. So later on, he realized that so to work this piece of code successfully, we require to change OS level features also, operating side. So now what he will do, he will apply the changes on his workstation, and we will test the code. So it will be successfully working fine, but this information is missed out, OS level changes. So then finally, what is going to happen? So will be having the missions will be having, right? So everything with the tools and software, but the OS level change is not there. Then what the testers will do? Some of the functionality may not be work, so they will raise the bugs, right? So this area is not made the requirement. So then the clash, right? So because on my machine is working, why there is not working? Who is the pointers here? The off stream is the pointers. Like this is the story for us. That's what the communication back gap, right? So right. So here there are n number of chances, n number of issues we have faced in the past. So due to that, so the delivery time, I promised the client to I am going to deliver the product at the end of December 2021, but it dragged out for 2 more months, right? So now in the past that is fine. Competition is very less. Now no, they are not at all allow us, right? So because it's right now the technology is growing rapidly. Many right, so competition is growing rapidly, right? So they are not going to allow to give that much of freedom, like okay, fine, okay, take 2 months or 1 month, so that's fine for me. It's not like that, right? So now here in the waterfall model, right? So in one of the waterfall model, it was successful in the past, like it was successful 10 years back. So right, so the model is nothing but here the pages. So whatever the SDLC pages we are going to see, so the model is going to have the same pages, but the thing is, right, so it is going to go for the downfall. So once I started requirements gathering, so once the requirement gathering is done, then I need to go for the design phase. So the page by page will follow. So once the pages are completed, it is not going to allow us to go back. Okay, if I'm started implementing, it is not allowing us for to go for the design phase back. Then the ideal time is high. So once the implementation is completed, then only we'll go for the testing. So like by the time that the ideal time for the testers is high, so likewise the page by page it will go and idle time become high. At the end it is a hurry for us so to complete the software, the bugs with the changes, like so so many issues with this waterfall model nowadays, not in the past, nowadays. So right. So now again, one of the drawback from the waterfall model here is the customer. Right. So he is not going to allow them to what kind of implementation is going. At the end, the product is going to deliver. Like the customer is able to see the product. So maybe he will satisfied or may not be he will satisfied. Right? Because he will expect something at the end results or something. Right. So now here, so in current generation or in current situation, so this waterfall model is not able to adapt because of these laggings, and the teams, specifically the teams are working in the silos, so they are not right. So when they are going to work in the silos means whatever the requirement they are going to receive, they are going to work on the requirement, then that's it. So they are not going to bother about the other areas, like the testers are not going to bother about, right? So test how the development is going on, what kind of infrastructure, like means what are the softwares are there on the machine, and the ops team is not going to bother about the testing side, and they are not going to bother about the development side. So whatever they are receiving, they are doing that and they are leaving that, right? So now okay, fine, so this is not going to successful now. So what the model changed here is from the waterfall to agile. So that the first point here is the customer should be happy. Once the customers are happy, we are going to get the business, we means organization, right? So now there the agile model came into the picture. So from the agile model, so instead of working in a silo, right, the developers, testers, the operations, these are the three teams, the core teams for a successful software development to delivery. So now instead of working in a silos, right, so we bring the teams together. The agile model bring the teams together so that we can see some good progress, right? And also, so whatever the implementation is going on, so will be the customer also travel with us in the sense they are going to see the progress, right? So now again, from the waterfall model, the page by page will go nothing but, so requirement is done, go for the design is done, then go for the development is done, then go for the testing. Here we are not going to go as a complete piece. So here the code, the piece, the requirement is going to split into the pieces. So not as a single piece, it is going to split into the pieces. If I take our application, like the example one here, right? So now instead of going with the entire application, we'll take the first piece as a like balance and query, right? So now, so not clear, it's coming like a sleepy voice. Please make it clear, Ratnam Babu. I don't know, guys. So what kind of issues you guys are facing, but I can see majority of the people are saying that my voice is clear. It's like so. So right. So now here, instead of going with the complete pack, so now the application will be divided into the pieces, right? So now the piece will take here. Suppose as an example here, we'll take the first piece like balance and query. Right? So then, so what we are going to do here, right? So the balance and query piece will take, and in the agile model, we'll start working on the balance and query. So on the balance and query, the same SDLC model will be applied, like gathering, analysis, design, building, testing, right? So there we'll go for the testing also. So now here, what is going to happen in the background? So in the agile model, developers and the testers are working together. So now this piece we are going to take in a sprint by sprint model, right? So now here, right, so I am going to take a piece, means suppose the balance inquiry I'm going to work, means so this will be on a sprint basis. Now this model is nothing but the iteration model we are going to call. So now the every sprint will take 2 weeks of the time, nothing but the 15 days. In the 15 days we are going to target one piece. So once the piece is completed, like development is completed, then testing also will be completed, then we are going to give the demo to the product owner, like the POs we are going to call them. So they will check the development, and they will see if any changes are needed. They are going to give the suggestions, or if it is good to go, then they say yes, it is fine, let's go with the, let's take the other piece. Likewise, so piece by piece the code will be taken and the code will be developed and it will be tested, then it will go for the demo. If right, then based on the demo it will go for the next activities. So likewise the iteration will be continued. So there progress whatever the progress we have seen here is teams. The base thing here is the development team and the testing team working together. So once the team working together, right? So the communication and the collaboration is implemented successfully. There we have seen very good progress. And the second one here is customer. Customer is very much satisfied because he is traveling with us, right? With the software development, he is going to see the progress, like how the code, like how the application is going to build, right? So now here, so from the waterfall model to this agile model is successful because of the team collaboration, and customers are very satisfied, and the code also maintained stable code. So because at earlier phase only we are going to see the issues, not at the end. So now here, so the only drawback from the agile model is still the ops team working in silos, right? Two teams are working together, but the still ops team working in silos. So now we came up with the concept called DevOps, right? So now the DevOps is going to bring the ops team into the area card. So the three teams is going to form as a single team, a single group. Then we'll start working in the background. Nothing but once the code got developed, right? So then we'll take the piece of code from the point of the code taking to testing, infrastructure management, security, everything we are going to take in the background. At the end, our target is to deploy the piece of the code as early as possible, as faster, right? So there the DevOps is came into the picture. So now the DevOps is nothing but, so we have the integration point for the developers and the QAs and the ops team, right? So now here, so we are going to take the responsibilities of the team's responsibilities, in the sense whatever we use it to follow the process and the methods. So we are going to change them in an automation fashion, right? So in an automation fashion, in the sense the DevOps, the core thing for the DevOps is do the automation with the help of code, right? So now, right, so we are going to make the automation with the help of code. So that's where, so we are also going to write the piece of code for the automations in the respective areas, whatever the area you are going. Suppose I am going to touch the infrastructure, right? So now this infrastructure area you are going to automate with the help of the code by using the tools called configuration management tools like Ansible, Chef, or Puppet, right? So nowadays infrastructure as a code, Terraform came into the picture, like, so there are n number of tools are coming into the market. So as a DevOps engineer, we have to adapt those tools, we have to apply those tools in on our project, and we have to see the progress. So progress in the sense at the end goal will be deliver as faster as possible, right? So right, so like, so there the DevOps is becoming boom here, because earlier there are three different teams, now it's this single team. So now we have avoided that communication gap, collaboration gap, everything is avoided, because everything you will come to know. So we are going to work with the developers continuously, so we are going to take the inputs from them. So right, it is like a process for us. So always you have to interact with the team, so whatever the team is required, and we have to go for the implementation of the process. So the process which I am going to call here is continuous integration, continuous deployment, and the continuous monitoring. So this is the process which we are going to implement with the support of the team, with the help of the tool stack. Right. So right guys, so any questions at this point, or are we good? Yeah, I don't know the name of with me. I will show. Right. I will show. Yeah. Right. So now here, if the process from the DevOps side, right? So that will be nothing but here. So it is a continuous process for us, right? So it will go for the planning and development, building, testing, release, deploy, operate, monitor. So these are the phases which we are going to implement with your skills, with the code base, right? It is a continuous process on an application, right? So now here, once the process is implemented, right? So whenever the code committed, so your process is going to trigger in the background, all the pages are going to go in a smoother way without any manual intervention. It has to go in an automated fashion. So that's where here the CA, CD, CM, right, integration, deployment, and monitoring we are going to implement. Right. So when we are going to talk about the history, right? So when the DevOps came, like who implemented, who introduced, or something, right? So here there are like Patrick Debias is the guy who introduced the DevOps word in 2008, one of the conference. So he thought of, okay, like because the teams are working in a silos, but they are very good, but due to the gap of communication and collaboration, so the time of the delivery is dragging out. So let's make a team like a DevOps. So there will be no separate teams. The DevOps is the one of the team which is going to integration with all the teams, which make the communication everything. They are the responsible person to deploy the code into the production server. So they has to take care of everything. He thought of that word DevOps. So then that was implemented in 2009 to Flickr employees. So now here earlier the deployment means it's like a, a, a days process, like it will be 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 7 days, like the process will be the deployment process. So with this automation of the DevOps, right, they have deployed more than 10 in a single day. So they have achieved the target with the DevOps. Then 2010 onwards, DevOps become boom. So everyone is looking for the DevOps and everyone is trying to adopt the DevOps in their areas, right? So now not only this tool stack, so many changes we have seen, like the cloud came into the picture, right? So that the infrastructure can be availed as a services, or the platform can be availed as a services, right? So many changes we have seen with the cloud, with the tools, with this DevOps area, so, right? So now this automation like make our jobs very easy, and the automation makes the customers very happy, right? So now let's go to the this particular model. So right, so if we are trying to discuss about, so the waterfall and agile and DevOps, right? So usually the waterfall model is, let it will go for the page by page design, then code, then test. At the end it will go for the deployment. If we are trying to talk about the agile, so design, code, and testing, right? So because the deployment is not going to happen, it will be the end phase for us. So in our DevOps, it is a continuous process for us. Develop, design, sorry, develop, test, deploy, develop, test, deploy. Like that, the iteration we are going to apply. So there we have seen the good thing here is identify the issues at early stages. When you identify the issues at early stages, right? So we are not going to face any kind of burden at the end. So that is one of the fruitful things in the from the DevOps area, right? When you automate everything, it is going to give you the bugs, it is going to show you the errors, or it's going to fail your development code. So that side, these are the issues are there, these are the bugs are there. Let's go and fix it first. Identifying the issues at the early stages. So that is one of the good points from the DevOps area, the automation area, right? So now here, so if we are try to understand in a simpler way, so what exactly the continuous integration is going to happen, what exactly the continuous deployment or the delivery is going to happen, means how the process is going to implement in a simpler way, if you are trying to understand here, right? So this is the slide which is going to discuss about the integration, right? So and this deployment and delivery, right? So here, when the developers are ready with the code, right? So what they will do, they are going to push their code into one of the area called, we are going to call them as a source code management area, like version control tool. So now once the code came into the source code management area, right? So the development code. So then we'll take the development code and we'll set up the process. The process nothing but build the code, test the code, and save the results. Nothing but we are going to call them as the artifact. We'll discuss more detail in our next slides. So with the tools, how this process is going to happen, just in a simpler manner. So what is the continuous integration? Whenever the developers are ready with the code, they are going to check in. And once the check-in is happened, our process is going to trigger. So this process is nothing but, right? So take the code, build the code, and test it. Like unit testing, we are going to call them, and store the results. If something is failed, the testing is failed, then immediately notify the team, the developer, so that again they will fix it and they will push the code back. So this is a continuous integration. So once the setup is done, it is going to trigger automatically. So that process we are going to set up. Then once the code is ready, so no failures, everything is fine, the results are stored. So then we'll go for the next part, CD part. So nothing but the deployment part. In the deployment part, so what we are going to do, so we'll take the results from the continuous integration, then we are going to deploy them into the different environments, right? So there we are going to have the different environments. We are going to call them as a development environment, quality assurance environment, like the QA environment, staging environment, user acceptance testing environment, UAT, then production environment, like that. Right? These environments are nothing but we are going to have the servers. On the servers, whatever the softwares or the tools or the features are required to test this code. So we are going to make the systems are ready. So then this code will be deployed on the server. Then the respective team, suppose on the development environment, so the developers are going to validate the code. On the testing, like the QA environment, right? So there the QA team is going to validate the code. Right, from the UAT environment, right, from the end users, like from the client side. So those guys are going to validate the code. So like the code is going to validated with the different teams or the respective teams with the different test cases, right? As an example, right, I have implemented a code, right. So now here, so this application I want to make it as a global, right? So now here, so right, people usually the common language for is English, so that is quite common. But when go to the Chinese, right, so they are not able to understand English much, so they will prefer always the China, right? So there my application has to support the China language, right? So likewise we have implemented this application on the Windows environment, right? The US people use the Linux as an example, guys. So now here, when I want to make it global, so there my application has to support the Linux as well, otherwise that's it, right? So now here is the kind of different things: OS compatibility, language compatibility, like the performance, right? How fast are the applications responding? Like there are different testings we are going to perform, so that we are going to make sure in all the areas your application, your piece of code is good, right? So those are nothing but which we are going to perform on the environment, and finally it will go to the end users like you and me on the production server, right? So now this complete process we are going to automate it. As a DevOps engineer, we are going to automate it, this complete process, right? Earlier, so for the build and deployment, release engineers were there, right? For the testing, right, still the testing teams are there, but the end goal is to automate the testing as well. So complete automation has to be go there. Then to set up this environment, ops team was there, right, to manage these web servers, app servers, everything, right? So middleware engineers were there. So now the one DevOps, two DevOps, or three DevOps engineers are taking everything here, right? Why the DevOps is means that the DevOps is the one area or the group of people which they are going to take the different teams, which where they are going to play their individual roles. Now we are the one we are going to play all the roles in a simplest manner, right? So now, right, earlier there are different teams, like 15 members will be there, like 15 to 20 members. Like if I take it, the ops team, middleware engineers, build and release engineers. So now as a DevOps engineer, 2 to 3 people, can you handle this stuff, right? With the manual, it is not possible. Yes, it is possible with the help of the automation skills, with the help of the tool stack, right? So now here, so if I'm going to discuss about, right, so what the DevOps is do, right? So simple, right? So what the DevOps is do, so it is going to automate. So what is going to automate? It is going to automate the the deployment process, the CI/CD. It is going to automate infrastructures, it is going to automate the workflows, right? So it is going to continuously, that's what the continuous monitoring, so continuously measuring the application performance, right? So so the base funda for the DevOps is automate everything with the help of code, right? So this is the life cycle. So whatever the continuous integration, continuous deployment, right now we have discussed, right? So if I go with the diagramical fashion, so this is the flow, right? So developers commits, then it will go for the checking, build artifacts in the building. We are going to validate some checks, so we'll discuss those things. Then it will go for the respective environments, like that, right? So now here, so if I want to set up this process, right? As I said, we are going to use some tool stack. With the help of the tool stack, we are going to automate with our coding skills. That's it, right? So now what are the tools we are going to use to automate this process, the DevOps area, right? So these are the tool stack. If you guys are able to see my screen, right? So these are the tool stack which we are going to use to automate the complete process, right? When I say complete process, integration to delivery, continuous integration, continuous deployment, and the continuous monitoring, right, guys? So any questions at this moment before discussing about the tools one by one, or are we clear? So I am not seeing any response. You guys able to hear me or not? At least clear. Perfect. Right. Fine. Okay. Right. So good. Abjit. Right. So we are going to use Azure or AWS. Yeah. AWS we are going to use. We are going. Our focus is AWS. At the end, I will show you guys how this complete DevOps process, which we are going to implement with the help of this tool stack, it can be done with the Azure. How it can be done, right? So there we'll take a code base and we are going to create the Azure pipelines like Azure DevOps process. We'll see. So I will show that one also. So yeah, so what is the difference between Azure DevOps and AWS DevOps software engineering? Are you going to explain all tools? Yes. Right. Okay, fine. So let's go with the tools wise, tool section, right? So now here, basically, right? So when you are going to work with the setup, right? When I want to implement this process, right? So one thing which is required for us, server knowledge, right? System knowledge is required, right? Because what you will do, I am going to set up the process. What setup you are going to do? A kind of integration, a kind of deployment. So where the deployment is going to happen at the end on the mission, right? So now whatever the things you are going to do at the end, you are going to touch the servers. So the servers are managing the servers are important for us. So now when I'm going to talk about the servers here, the machines, so the machines can be a Windows machine or the machines can be the Linux machine, right? So most of the projects are running on the Linux. Why? Because from the security point of view, right? Security point of view, Linux is better than these Windows stuff, right? So now as a DevOps engineer, first we require to have at least a good knowledge on the mission side, like nothing but the on the OS side, right? So Windows is fine because Windows is will be having the GUI. The office manager know how to code. I have no problem, Salman. So let me cover the tools. Then I will give you who are eligible, right? Or how to take this course. Everything I want to explain. No worries, Salman. Let's finish this tool section. So now here this OS knowledge is required because you might be working with the Linux servers or you might be working with the Windows. So Windows will be having the GUI mode so that you can manage everything, right? But when it comes to Linux, so they will be disabled the GUI mode. You have to work with the CLI mode, command line interface. So now we require to have at least a base command, a basic commands which we can use to manage our day-to-day activities, right? So as an example, so some service is not responding, so now I need to go and see whether the service is working or not, whether the service is active or not, right? Or I want to copy some content into the server, right? I need to know what are the commands which we can use to copy the stuff into the server, like that. So we require to have some knowledge on the server side, so that so when you are going to work with this Linux stuff, right? So we'll be using the commands only. So there, if you are not right, Windows 7 era GUI, right? The Windows thing, right? Anyway, Windows will be having the GUI, right? So right. So now here, so as a DevOps engineer, the first thing will be we need to have the Linux knowledge, right? So now from the Linux side, so we don't require to have the administration thing, because right, so we are not going to go for the administration side, right? We require to have the knowledge to manage the server. So we'll take the first thing from Linux here. So anyway, this organization, right? So our Naresh organization is providing the Linux is completely free. So there is a separate batch which is going to run for the Linux, so you guys can take that course on a free basis. You don't require to pay anything for that. It is a complete free one. So then, so the automations, right? So now here, once you start working with the machines, you have to do some automations on the server side, right? On the mission side. So what kind of automations? As an example, right? So my process, the CI/CD, the jobs are running on the Jenkins mission, on the Jenkins. Now the Jenkins is set up on a Linux server. So right. So now here, so now once the Jenkins is set up on the Linux server, and we are start using that in the background, right? So we are going to have the jobs, the data is going to produce. So now what is going to happen if some point of time, right? So the Jenkins is down, it is not responding. Then how we are going to bring the Jenkins back with the data, right? So Jenkins can be bring back. Simply you can take a server, you can install the Jenkins will be back. But what about the data, right? So now here, so that data is very, very, very important for us. So now what we need to do, daily the data has to be taken the backup, right? So once you are taking the backup separately, then if some point of time or any reasons if the Jenkins is gone, still you have the data handy, you can bring the Jenkins with the data back. So now daily the data has to be taken into the backup. So now this is a daily process, repeated activity that should be automated, right? So repeated activity should be automated. So now on the server side, we should, right? So we should know how to automate this backup, right? So there we have some kind of process will be there, or we can create a code, shell scripts from the Linux side. Shell scripts we can create, then with the scripts we can automate the day-to-day activities or the repeated activities, right? So now here, so earlier the shell was widely used to automate the things when there was no specific tools for the respective areas. So there the script was there. Shell scripts are going to use to automate the things, right? So now as the DevOps is there, right? So when we are going to work with this Linux stuff, yes, we require to know the knowledge of the shell also, right? Maybe some of the projects still they are using the shell, so right, you have to understand those things also. So now from the OS side, so Linux and shell is required here, the at least the knowledge, we don't require to have the expertise. Then then the DevOps side, so the first tool is version control tool, right? So now the version control tool is nothing but to manage the code, the software development code, right? So now here, so why this version control tool is required? So to manage this software development code, if I take a simple example here, right? So here, suppose, so I am the developer, so I am developing an application here. So this is my workstation. So on the workstation I have developed the piece of code. So now my code is nothing but login page I have implemented. So now what is going to happen? So this code is implemented and this code is tested. Then finally it went for the deployment. So tested thoroughly, working fine. So then it went to the production. So now here, this is my production server there. Suppose as an example, guys. So this is deployed here. Perfectly fine. So what is the login page is going to have? So basically the login page. Yes, yes, yeah. GitHub also. We are going to cover the GitHub also. Yeah. So now here is the login page. What is going to have? What kind of a page it was? It is going to have the user ID and password and submit button. Right. So now here, so this is the page I have created. Then that is working fine on the production. So that's fine. Then the customer asks us to, right, I need some changes on the login page. So nothing but I required one more button here, the cancel button. Along with the submit button, I require the cancel button. So now what I will do, so whatever the code I have, created for the login page. So I will take the code again. On the code, I will add the code for the cancel. Then again, the code went for the testing. So it is tested successfully. Everything is working fine. So then it is deployed on the production with the cancel button. So once the code got deployed on the production, now it failed. Yes, there is a chance that even though you tested thoroughly, there is a chance of failure when you deploy the code into the production. So this is the thing we are going to face regularly, right? So now here, so how we are going to deal this situation, right? So because the application is down now because of the latest changes, right? So now you cannot go for the fixing, right? If you go for the fixing of the code, right, what happened to the code? So maybe it will take 1 hour time or 1 day time or 2 days time, right? So now your customer, like like who are giving the business, is not going to allow you to give that much of time, right? If I take the our e-commerce application like Flipkart or Amazon, if they are not able to log in, so see how much business they are going to lose in a 5 minutes of span, right? So now here, so they are not going to entertain us to fix the code to take 1 hour 2 hours. So now the immediate job for us, so bring the previous code, bring the stable code back. So now my previous code in the sense login, user ID, password, and submit. That was the previous code. So now remove the cancel code. So now I don't have the previous code because what I did, I have modified the code. Whatever the code I have modified it. I have to revert the changes. Now the revert the change means again it is a work. So right. So there the version control tool came into the picture. Right. So now here, so when you are going to do the changes on the code bases in the background, automatically the version control tool will create the copies for us. We are going to call them like a versions. So now here, so whenever the code is ready, right, initially, so now here we are going to push the code into the version control tool called Git, GitHub, Bitbucket, SVN, Perforce. Like that, there are n number of version control tools are available in the market. So one of the tool called Git is very famous. So because of the model we'll discuss when we are going to when we are in the classes, like what is the distribution model, what is the centralized model, something like that. So now here, so in the GitHub, so when I implemented the page, so now it will be stored is a version. Suppose I am going to store like login iPhone version 1. So that will be the login iPhone version 1. So this version 1 will be having the user ID, password, and submit. So now when I added the cancel button for that, it is going to save the login with the version 2. So now the version 2 went for the deployment. So this guy went for the deployment. It is failed there. So now immediately I need to roll back. So what I will do, simply I will take the version 1 back. Right. So that is the one of the biggest advantage, right? So when you are going to work with the code, so to track the changes, right? So to revert the changes, the version control tools are very handy. So they will take care of the versioning. So we have to manage it properly, right? From our end, we have to manage it properly. Okay, fine. So right. So okay, fine. Now I got it. So what is the version control tool? Why we are going to use the version control tool? But why for the DevOps? Right. So here I can see the developers are going to use this version control tool. So as you said, there is the login page which I am not going to implement. The DevOps guy is not going to implement this login page. So then why the DevOps guys are required to understand this version control tool? Correct? Right. So as I said, the DevOps is nothing but we are going to automate the areas with the help of the code. Right. If I take the Jenkins, I am going to write the Jenkins pipelines. If I take the Docker, I am going to write the Docker files. If I take the Kubernetes, I am going to write the Kubernetes manifest files. If I take the Ansible, I am going to write the playbook. If I take the Chef, I am going to write the cookbook. Like that. So if I take the shell, I am going to write the shell script, Python script, right? So whatever the tool you are going to use, so right, so the tool will be having the coding facility, right? We are going to use the coding stuff to automate the task. So now where you are going to place your code, your pipelines, Docker files, Kubernetes manifest files, or playbook, where you are going to store it, right? That's where we are going to use the version control tools as well. So now the DevOps guys is having the extra responsibility that not only using this version control tools, we are going to manage them also for the team, right? So not only using, we are going to, right, how to manage that, that will going to cover in our version control tools when we are going to start our classes. right? So this is the first tool from the DevOps side. So version control tool. So the one is to manage, to track the code pieces, and the second one is avoid the dependencies, right? So now here one of the developer is going to work on the is going to work on the credit card module. So now here, so this guy has implemented the credit card module, then he want to test the code. So now to test the code, what he want to do it, he want to see whether his changes are going to impact the other areas, right? So now what he will do, he will start validating from the login. So he will log into the application, then he'll go to the CC module. So likewise, he want to test it. So now if the login module is not available with him, he cannot test that piece, right? So there should not be kind of any dependency. So if the code is available in central location, right? So now from that, anyone can pick up here. So there should not be any kind of dependency between the persons. There should not be, right? So the other one is avoiding the dependency, and the first one is here managing the code, right? Versioning and tracking the changes can be done with the these version control tools, right, guys? So then the next tools, right? So the next tool like the Jenkins, SonarQube, and all the tools we'll discuss tomorrow. Tomorrow we are going to continue this demo and we'll try to understand the tools in deeper. So how the tools are going to use, where we are going to use, how we are going to integrate, all the stuff we are going to discuss. Then finally we'll discuss about these opportunities, who can switch to the DevOps career, so all the stuff, right? So today, any questions you guys are having, please let me know so that I will try to clarify your doubts. Or if you are good, so then let's meet tomorrow to continue this demo. Right? Any questions, guys? So Chaitanya, so Terraform Python, okay, right? So for Terraform Python, right? So Terraform is no related with the Python here. So Terraform is having their own businesses on the cloud side. So you don't need to go with the this particular Python to learn the Terraform, right? That is a separate piece. Is a separate. So is there any prerequisite? Right? So yeah, so right. So here the prerequisite for the DevOps folks, right? Because as I said, so we are good to take care of multiple teams responsibilities. So now here it is not to for anyone so that they can easily adapt. But yes, if they're from the administration background, so when they are going to work with the machine, that will be easy for them. If they are coming from the build and release, then that will be easy for them to understand the build process. If they are coming from the testing, that will be easy for them to understanding the testing area. Likewise, but at the end, so one area they will know, but the other areas they are completely new. So now here, so anyone can take the DevOps because maybe if that people are coming from the respective background, that area will be helpful for them. The other areas completely new to them. And from the prerequisite side, right? So here, so as I said, right? So if I have the Linux knowledge, that is good for me. So when I'm going to work with the servers, I have good understanding, right? When I have the build and release knowledge, that is good for me when I'm going to create the job, right? So but here there is something like that. It is mandatory, right? So even if you don't have anything knowledge on the this DevOps tool set, so we'll take care of every tool from the scratch, right? So you don't worry about the prerequisite. Anyone take the DevOps, but only the thing is you have to have the passion and you have to have spend some good amount of time to practice because these are the different tool stack we are going to see here. More than 10 plus tools we are going to see here on the DevOps side, and also from the cloud side we are going to cover more than 8 to 10 services. So now when you are going to work with the different pieces, so that will be a confusion is going to create if you don't understand the particular process, because the DevOps is the process which we are going to implement with the help of this tool stack, right? So that's where we have to focus on that area. Nothing but practice is mandatory for us. That's it. Once you start practicing it, so then DevOps will be very easy for us. So now here, so Python knowledge is required or Python scripting, right? So Sangeeta, right? So Python scripting is required for us. So we are not going to implement any kind of business logics or the application. So we are not going to deal with that. So today you are going to set up the process for the Python application. Tomorrow you might be working with the Java, or after that you might be working with the .NET, right? So there you are not sure which kind of application you are going to use to set up the process. So you don't require to know the application knowledge. If you have the application knowledge, that is very advantage for you because you can troubleshoot the points from the developer side also when you are going to set up. That will be easy for you. So what is the DevOps engineer role with respect to the site level, right? So from the SRE side, they'll be focused on the infrastructure and to manage the site. So now here we are going to focus on the other areas, right? You are going to work with the developer side also. You are going to see the development side issues, means the dependencies, how they are going to manage, how you are going to manage, and you are going to set up the build area, right? So you are going to set up these jobs, the integration jobs and deployment jobs, and you are going to automate the infrastructure as well, right? So SRE guys are going to take care of these things, but you are going to take care of everything here, right? So then freshers, right? Balaji, yes, freshers also can be learned easily, but the only thing is, right, as I said, right, practice is required. Practice is the key point for the DevOps, right? Anyone take the DevOps. So we don't write any code, right? So no, Seta Ramreddy, right? I'm this point I'm saying continuously that we are going to implement the automation with the help of code, right? But that is not the application development code, or that is not the business logics, right? So you are going to write the piece of code on your respected areas, right? In the build area, you are going to write a piece of code to build the job, right? The infrastructure area, you are going to launch the infrastructure, you are going to install the softwares on the machines with the help of the code. So that area you are going to take it. When you are going to work with the microservices, right? So there we are going to use the Docker and Kubernetes. So there we are going to write the Docker files and the Kubernetes files to to manage the containers and to manage these services, like there, that kind of code we are going to write, but not into development area. So Bharat, AWS, is this AWS DevOps or no here, right? So here, if it is AWS DevOps or Azure DevOps, right? So those are the paid things for us actually, right? So that's why the still open source tools are having the demand in the market. Otherwise, it will be out of the market, right? So these are all the open source tools which widely implemented, widely used in the projects. So Azure DevOps and AWS are limitedly used because of the cost thing, right? You have to pay the cost when you are going to use their services, right? So Azure DevOps, yes, and Jenkins are same perfect, Redmi, right? So I don't know your name, but I can see here Redmi. Yes, so VSTS and Jenkins are the same, the Azure DevOps. So you will give stand script which will use daily. So Bhaskar, right? So the stand script means we'll go with the scripting, like when I go the shell or Python, we'll try to understand how to use the shell and how to use the Python. Then we'll see how to use the shells and the Python to automate our task, like like monitoring, right? So like taking the backup, like those things I will go into show you guys. So then how many days? Yes. So Pranay, right? So this will be right. So here we are going to take two projects in our as part of this growth. So one is we'll try to understand the monolithic application deployment process, and we'll try to understand the microservice deployment process, because right, so every application nowadays is going with the microservices. It is having their own advantages, right? So now as a DevOps engineer, it can be a mono or it can be a micro. You have to set up for that, but with the different tools. So that is the reason. So we'll take two projects. One is for the mono and one is for the micro. So we'll go and set up the complete CI and CD process for them for that particular piece of code, right? So with the help of the tool stack, whatever you guys are seeing on the screen. So right, it will take minimum 2.5 months for us, right? So because we are not going to go in a critical fashion, right, all the tools will go in the technical way, right? So you guys are going to we are going to start the tools from the installations to configuration and using them, and finally integration. So that we will take the use cases and we'll go with the flow, right? So that's where it will take minimum 2.5 months. So can you share them? Yes, yes, from the material side, yes. So material is available for the respective tools. So if I take, suppose, like you can guys see my screen. So this is the material called the Docker, right? So likewise, I have prepared the material for each and every tool, the PPTs. So the PPTs are going to have the clear cut explanation with the commands and everything. So right, so I'm going to provide these materials to you guys once you start the classes. So for each tool, we are going to receive the material. So no worries, I am going to provide the material. Yeah. So how many hours? Yeah. So now here every day will be our seven to this batch will be the 7 to 8 batch. So 1 hour you are going to spend. So maybe if it is demands, right? So maybe we can extend it, or we'll try to plan for the weekend. That is not immediately. Maybe if it is required, if demands, right? If we are not able to complete the course in the 2.5 months, then we'll plan for that. Right? Otherwise, so daily it will be 1 hour class. So do we have the in batches like after 3? So no, Sadhu, right? So those, that is my office timings. I can, right? I am not taking any DevOps classes after the 10. So maybe you can reach the organization. So maybe other persons might be taken after 3 o'clock also. You can try to contact our organization, you can get the information. But from my end, no, I am not going to take after the 10. So yeah, so right, so that's the plan, right? So we'll go with the every tool detail, and we'll try to go with the technical fashion, right? The interview questions also will be covered on the respective tools, on the respective sections. What is the section is needed for us to crack the interviews, that people or the interviews will focus on the sections. Likewise, we'll go with that, and at the end we are going to see the complete process, right? So there, installations, configurations, integrations, and set of the flow, everything you guys are going to do. And also from the system side, right? So we are going to use the cloud services, so you don't require to have the high configured machines. The machine is required with the internet, that's it. So I will let you know, guys, how to set up these environments, how to create the machines, everything I will be taking care. So yeah, so this is one of the good questions, Setaram, right? So that's where here, if you guys are able to see my screen again. So we have, my intention is, right? So you should not stop your practice. So that's where we are going to create the WhatsApp group. So this is like a WhatsApp group will be created, and in the group, so people will be start, when the people start practicing, any questions they are going to raise, they are going to post the questions with the screenshots, so that people can help, like either me or someone will is trying to help the people, right? This is one of the communication channel which we are going to use between you guys and me, right? So what group I am going to create, WhatsApp group for every batch. So this batch for this group purpose is the one is, right? So the other can also know, right? So once suppose I am facing an issue, right? So if I post this issue on the group, so other people will come to know, okay, so this is an issue like we are going to resolve also, right? So that is one of the thing. And the second one is, right, so this group will be there even after the batch is completed, so that any kind of support, means support in the sense, if you guys are stuck or if you guys are facing any issues, so you guys can reach through the group. And also the materials and everything I am going to share along with this group. Yeah, this is the communication channel for us, right? So any other questions, or are we good? Perfect, right? So I think we are good, right? So let's meet on tomorrow, guys. Tomorrow 7 o'clock we'll meet, and we'll try to continue our tool section, right? So thank you. See you on tomorrow.